Hello, girls. A very good morning. For today's class, we're going to begin with a new poet, that is P.B. Shelley. And the poem that is there in your syllabus is Ode to the West Wind. So, P.B. Shelley was Percy Bysshe Shelley, was one of the major English romantic poets, widely regarded as one of the greatest lyric and philosophical poets in the English language. A radical in his poetry as well as his political and social views, Shelley did not see fame during his lifetime, but recognition of his achievement in poetry grew steadily following his death. Shelley became a key member of a close circle of visionary poets and writers that included Lord Byron, John Keats, Leigh Thomas Love Peacock, and his own second wife, Mary Shelley, whom we know as the author of Frankenstein. Shelley is best known for classical poems such as Ozymandias, Ode to the West Wind, To a Skylark, Music, When Soft Voices Die, The Cloud, The Mask of Anarchy. His other major works include a groundbreaking verse drama, The Cenci, 1819, and long visionary philosophical poems such as Queen Mab, Alastor, The Revolt of Islam, Adonais, Prometheus Unbound 1820, widely considered his masterpiece, Hellas, a lyrical drama 1821, and his final unfinished work, The Triumph of Life 1822. Uncompromising idealism and the conventional life of Shelley, combined with his powerful disapproving voice, made him a disparaged and authoritative figure in his lifetime. He became a model for later generation of writers and poets, which include Victorian poets and poets of the pre-Raphaelite group, such as Tennyson, Byron, Swinburne, Robert Browning, Dante Gabriel Rossetti, W.B. Yeats, Thoreau, Millais, and many others. Shelley also became a source of inspiration for the poets of other languages, including Rabindranath Tagore, Subramanyam Bharati, Jibananda Das, and the non-violence of Shelley inspired the passive resistance of Gandhi, Mohandas Karamchand Gandhi, and civil disobedience of Thoreau. The reason that Gandhi often used quotes from Shelley's Mask of Anarchy. Thomas Hardy, Bernard Shaw, Karl Marx, Bernard Russell, and Sinclair also got inspiration from him. His short prose works include The Assassins, A Fragment of Romance, The Elysian Fields, A Lucian Fragment, and many more. Shelley published his first romantic Gothic novel called The Story in 1810 and published his second romantic novel, St. Irene or The Rosicrucian, in 1811. Shelley was a famous English romantic poet whose poetry reflects passion, beauty, imagination, love, creativity, political liberty, and nature. Being very sensitive and possessive distinctive quality of hope, love, joy, and imagination. Shelley strongly believed in realization of human happiness. Ozymandias was one of his major contributions to English romantic poetry, published in 1880. Shelley often faced criticism due to his outspoken challenges to religion, oppression, and conventional politics. The Mask of Anarchy is one of them. In 1820, Shelley wrote an elegy, Adonais, inspired by Keats' death, John Keats. Other popular poems of Shelley are A Bridal Song, A Hate Song, A Dialogue, A Lament, A Serpent Face, A Fragment to Music, A Dirge, A New National Anthem, and Alas, This Is Not What I Thought Life Was. Shelley was the supporter of social justice for the masses. He had strong feelings for the lower class. He also saw how animals were maltreated and slaughtered. Therefore, he became a fighter and an advocate for all those living creatures mistreated or treated unjustly. Throughout his life, most journals and publishers turned down his request to publish his work due to the fear of being arrested for rebellious activities. So, this was a general introduction of what Shelley has written and what are his major themes that he has used in his poetry. The poem that is there in your syllabus is Ode to the West Wind. So, Ode is basically a song that has been created. So, he's singing a song for the West Wind. So, Ode to the West Wind is an ode written in 1819 near Florence, Italy. It was originally published in 1820 by Charles in London as part of the collection Prometheus Unbound, a lyrical drama in 4 acts with other poems. Perhaps more than anything else, Shelley wanted his message of reform and revolution spread, and the wind becomes the troop for spreading the word of change through the poet's prophet figure. Some also believe that poem was written in response to the loss of his son William, born to Mary Shelley in 1819. The ensuing pain influenced Shelley. The poem allegorizes the role of the poet as the voice of change and revolution. At the time of composing this poem, Shelley without doubt had Peterloo massacre of August 1819 in mind. His other poems written at the same time, The Mask of Anarchy, Prometheus Unbound, and England in 1890, take up these themes of political change, revolution, and role of the poet. The poem, if you're going to look at the text, so the poem Ode to the West Wind consists of 5 sections in a rhyming couplet. The ode is written in an iambic pentameter. The poem begins with 3 sections describing the wind's effect upon earth, air, and ocean. And in the last 2 sections, the poet speaks directly to the wind, asking for its power to lift him up and take him and make him his companion in its wanderings. Wanderings is in its survival, and it's going from one place to another. The poem ends with an optimistic note, which is that if winter days are here, then spring is not very far. So, as winter has been considered as a dull time, a time when nothing special is happening. So, he says if you have problems in your life, then spring is not very far. The new hope, new beginning, new changes that are going to happen are not very far. So, he's going an optimistic note in the end of the poem. The poem can be divided in 2 parts. The first 3 cantos are about the qualities of the wind, and each ends with the invocation, O hear. The last 2 cantos give a relation between the wind and the speaker. This poem is a highly controlled text about the role of the poets as the agent of political and moral change. So it's basically talking about that what is the basic idea of writing poetry. So what poets are supposed to do, because they are the people who can bring this political and moral change in the society. This was a subject Shelley wrote a great deal about, especially around 1819, with the strongest version of it articulated the last famous lines of his defense of poetry. So if you're going to talk about his work, so his work is lot more considered with where he's trying to bring some social and political and moral change in the society, and that is why he has written a lot of these things. We're going to discuss for today's class, we're going to discuss 1 canto of Ode to the West Wind, and as you can see, I have provided you with the text. So he says, O wild west wind, thou breath of autumn being, thou from whose unseen presence the leaves dead are driven like the ghost from an enchanter fleeing. So these are the opening lines, the opening stanza of Ode to the West Wind. The speaker appeals to the west wind. The use of capital letters for west and wind immediately suggests that he is speaking to wind as though it is a person. So what has happened here? Your west wind has been personified. Personification has been done. I hope you know what personification is. When you give human-like qualities or human-like characteristics to a particular thing, it is called personification. So your west wind here is being personified. And what else has been personified? He personifies autumn as well and calls west wind as its breath. And thou from whose unseen presence the leaves that are driven like ghosts from an enchanter fleeing. So what this wind is doing? The wind is invisible, but its power can be easily seen on dead leaves. And why it can be easily seen on dead leaves? What this wind is doing? Its force drives the wind as a magician drives away the ghost. Fleeing is runaway and enchanter is magic. So the poet has used a simile to make a comparison. So what is the comparison that is being used? That with the use of magic, a magician does what? It makes a ghost run away. Similarly, what this wind is doing, it is unseen presence. Why it is unseen? Because you would not be able to see the wind. with this unseen presence, the wind is doing what? It is removing, it is making the dead leaves fly from one place to another. So he calls the wind the breath of autumn's being, thereby further personifying the wind and giving it the human quality of having breath. He describes the wind as having unseen presence, which make it seem as though he views the wind as a sort of god or a spiritual being. The last line of this stanza specially refers to the wind as a spiritual being that drives away death and ghosts. So what is the how it is a spiritual being? Because it is removing, it is making ghosts and dreams run away from the area. So this is what he meant in these lines. Next he says, yellow and black and pale and hectic red, pestilence stricken multitude, O thou whose chariots to their dark wintry bed. So this is stanza describes the dead autumn leaves. They are not described as colorful and beautiful, but rather as a symbol of death and even disease. So yellow, pale, black, pale. Pale is something which is bloodless, and hectic, red. So these are the multiple colors that these leaves have, or of different color. And it seems pestilences, disease, stricken multitudes in heaps are seen to be afflicted with some kind of disease. So, O thou is an archaic word for you. So, O thou is for west wind. Who chariotist is that who's riding it in the chariot. Chariot is basically is rath, which you call in Hindi, to their dark wintry bed. And what is that dark wintry bed? So the west wind sends the winged seed to the dark bed under the earth, where they're going to remain for a longer period of time. So if the speaker describes the deathly colors, yellow, black and pale, even hectic red reminds of blood and sickness. He describes the dead and dying leaves as pestilence stricken multitude. Pestilence is diseased, stricken multitude is stricken is affected by, and multitude is in large number, in huge quantity. This is not a peaceful or beautiful description, as you can say, of the fall leaves. Rather, the speaker seems to see the fall leaves as a symbol of the death, the sick and the dying. The wind then comes along like a chariot and carries the leaves to their dark wintry bed, which is clearly a symbol of grave. So whenever a person dies, so we bury that person under the earth. So similarly, what is going to happen? This wind, this west wind, is what going to do? Is going to do what? Is going to bury these leaves in their grave. So that is why it's a dark wintry bed. And then the winged seed where they lie cold and low, each like a corpse within its grave, until thine azure sister of the spring shall blow. And a comparison, a metaphor has been used. And why this comparison has been done? Because the seeds have been compared to the winged seeds. And how they are winged? Because the wind has the quality, because wind has the characteristics that they can make them fly. So that is why the seeds have been compared to the winged seeds. The speaker continues the metaphor of the leaves as the dead by explaining that the wind carries them and winged seeds to their graves, where they lie cold and low. So why cold? Because it's winter time. And why low? Because they've been buried in the earth, each like a corpse within its grave. So another simile has been used, and your leaves have been compared to the corpse. Corpse is the dead body. Until thine azure, thine is your, azure is this color, the sky blue color. Sister is again the personification has been done, and spring here is being categorized or considered as the sister of autumn, of spring shall blow. So what is he trying to say? So then uses a simile to compare each leaf to a dead body, to a corpse within its grave. But then part way through the second life, a shift occurs. And what is that shift? The speaker says that each is like a corpse until the wind comes through, taking away the dead but bringing a new life. And how it is going to bring a new life? With the season of spring came into existence, there going to be a new life. So the use of the word azure or blue to describe the wind is in a sharp contrast to the colors that are used to describe the leaves. So what are the colors that are being used to describe the leaf? He says yellow, black and pale and hectic red, and to which there is a comparison of the color azure. Azure is blue color, and blue color symbolizes means your clear sky, and when you have a clear sky, it's the time of spring. So with the coming of the season, with the coming of the sister of autumn, and who's the sister of autumn? Spring is the system of autumn. What is going to happen? There's going to be new life all around. So what is happening? So he says, "Thine azure sister of the spring shall blow her clarion over the dreaming earth, and fill driving sweet buds like flocks to feed in air, with living hues and ardors plain and hill." So what is going to do with this stanza of Ode to the West Wind? The speaker describes the wind as something which drives away death, burying the dead and bringing new life. It brings living hues. What is living hues? Is as beautiful flowers which is going to fill the complete area. And what is else going to happen? And odors is the smell, the fragrance of the flowers which are filled with new life. So he says, her clarion, her, he's here for spring. Clarion is trumpet, a musical instrument, over the dreaming earth. Dreaming earth here refers to sleeping earth. Why it is sleeping? Because there are no flowers right now. So it seems as if your earth is sleeping. It seems as if nothing beautiful is there. So that is why dreaming earth. And fill driving sweet buds like flocks to feed in air. And what is going to happen? He's again making a comparison. So as shepherds take its flock to graze, similarly spring will drive buds all out into open air. So what is going to happen? As people take their animals to graze, to feed upon the grass, similarly the spring is going to do what? The spring is going to fill the complete area with beautiful multiple flowers, and your area would be filled with the fragrance of those flowers with living hues. So the valley would be filled with buds and flowers, odors, plain and hill, of different color and fragrance. And in the last two lines, that is the couplet with the same rhyme scheme, wild spirit, which art thou moving everywhere, destroyer and preserver, here, oh, here. So now he's doing what? He's comparing west wind to the wild wind. Which art moving everywhere? Which art is for which are moving everywhere is moving everywhere in this complete area. Destroyer. Why it is destroyer? Because it is going to destroy the dead leaves. It is going to move the dead leaves from one place to another. And preserver of the living seeds, here, oh, here. So here the speaker again appeals to the wind, calling it a wild spirit and viewing it as a spiritual being who destroys and yet also preserves life. He's asking the spirit to hear his pleas. Pleas is that he's making a request to that request to the west wind, though he has not made any specific request of to the wind, but it is clear that he views it as a powerful spiritual being which can hear. So what is he trying to talk about, and why it is called as destroyer and preserver? Because in the first few lines, your wild wind is doing what? Is destroying the dead leaves. It is making them run from there. And preserver of the living seeds which lie in the earth, which are being buried in the earth, and they are going to come out. When they are going to come out? When your spring season will be there. So this is the first canto of your poem, Ode to the West Wind. Hope it is clear to you. In the next classes, we're going to do the two other stanzas, and I'm going to divide your particular poem in three parts so that it is easier for you to understand. I'm also going to provide you with this PPT. So in any case, if you're not able to understand while I'm talking, you can definitely get benefited after reading it. So this was all for today. Thank you so much. Stay happy, stay safe, and continue reading. Have a great time. Thank you so much, girls.